Gazhaznam these house zik gum kazam naze booms gazhaznam this has zik gum kazam naze vums these house zik gum bums and any particular impressions or things to share before we
yeah, it came to me working with like a base material energy, patience, emotions, thoughts, and work with the intuition.
and we'll see more when it gets to that, but into the chronic verses that I chose for this ritual, you notice that some of them were used in reference to another vampire ritual, and that's fine in itself. 273 translates something like, forbidden to you are carrion and blood, and the flesh of the swine, and that which has been consecrated in the name of other than divinity, if one is obliged by necessity to eat it without intending to transgress or reverting to it, that he's not guilty of sin, for God is forgiving and kind. Of course, one of the things there is you don't have so many rules with what you're supposed to eat or not, and there's no blame on people doing what they need to do. And feel free to throw in your comment. But of course, I mentioned that because blood is mentioned with that. We have 5.3, which renders something like, forbidden to you is carrion and blood and the flesh of the swine. That word for swine also refers to anything that eats meat that's not a creature of the water. Anything with the fangs and the talons and
yeah,
and that sort, and the claws. And whatsoever has been killed in the name of some other than God, which people don't get that one. It's like Tyson. You really think you're not doing anything different if you're the chicken company, or but I'm not sure what else they do, but they do chicken. But and whatever has been strangled or killed by a blow or a fall, or by goring, or that which has been mauled by wild beasts, unless slaughtered while still alive, and that which has been slaughtered at altars is forbidden, and the dividing of the meat by casting lots with arrows, all this is sinful. Today, unbelievers lost every hope of despoiling your creed, so do not fear them, fear me. Today I perfected your system of belief and bestowed my favors upon you in full, and have chosen submission as the creed for you. If one of them is driven by hunger without the intent of sinning, then God is forgiving and kind. Again, you do what you need to do to survive. And one of the things, Alexander the Great was, he had, it's hard to say what theology was because 4 different people spoke about him, and everybody wanted him in their culture as like purely of their culture, not, just being of the material culture and going along with it. But, everybody wanted Alexander the Great as part of their culture. You know what I mean?
right.
But regardless, he was somebody who had fear of the spiritual side, but that made him one of the bravest people ever, because he had this fear, this regard that he put things upon.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
a system of belief, it's like it's so much of this stuff is messed up when humans try to do stuff with it. either the liberals or the conservatives get a hold of it, and then it gets stuck there, or just an individual kind of just kind of messes with something. It's one thing you have new terms to understand stuff and you're trying to understand the things, but people always trying to change stuff.
Yeah.
But
or when they try to make it better, it doesn't end up
if
like
how you treat life,
it ends up.
oh,
Yeah, balance is very important.
If how you treat life and how you spend life when it comes to it, how you eat and all that other stuff has nothing to do with your spirituality, then at the very least, other people are going to have hope that this is someone we can manipulate, because this guy has no ethics in terms of what he's intaking, and that can affect in other ways, right? And okay, 140.
It's like
146. Go ahead, say what you're going to say.
It's like in spirituality, building up always helps. You were talking about, what, how to regard life and what one does in life. And it's like with spirituality, like layers can build in time, and the layers get tougher. Yeah, they get tougher. So when some people call it the afterlife, when it's time for that to occur, maybe that little astral vehicle will be tough enough to the point of making a little easy journey there through that.
Well, we definitely have
initial hunt
in what we chose here.
Okay.
Instead of 7 veils, it's sort of 7 veils, but it's the 7 veils of yourself. And you got the descent of Tukper Debug, but below that, outside yourself, is Og, and above it is Shma. And so each of them sort of has a tarot card. You have 2 extra tarot cards in that, really, because the Ga is the vision of the Ayin, so it's the darkening factor, the twisting factor. So put that on a card. And
the beginning of darkness.
The crater, or the Hamza, or whatever language term you're going to call for it, that is it's like the void. So it makes the space for it. And of course we had the Ain, so that's the devil card. The Gam is the high priestess. The Bait is the magician. The Doll is the empress. The Rash is the sun. The Pei is the tower. The Calf is the wheel of fortune. The Tau is the universe. The Sheen is the judgment. The Meme is the hanged man, or the drowned man. And you have the Aleph as the full card. And of course we'll go into I have some comments, I guess, when we get to the main, once we get past this set of verses here. 644, 145. You tell them, and the commands revealed to me, I find nothing which men have been forbidden to eat except carrion, and running blood and flesh of the swine, for it's unclean, or meat consecrated in the name of some other than God, which is profane. But if one's constrained to eat of these without craving or reverting to it, then surely your Lord is forgiving and kind. We made unlawful for the Jews all animals with claws or nails, and the fat of the oxen and the sheep, except what is on their backs, for their intestines, or what remains attached to their bones. This was the punishment for their subordination, and what we say is true. Now, I'm not saying by referencing this that everybody who hears this program or anything like that has to switch over and believe or obey these things. That's certainly up to them what they want to do with them. But that passage in particular shows that if you make things too strict on yourself, then other stuff can happen.
Agreed.
And people shouldn't seek after trying to figure out what is about forbidding things on themselves. They should seek after, what can be the use of what's at hand. And 733. So we let loose on them floods and locusts and vermin and frogs and blood. How many different signs? But they remained arrogant, for they were a people full of sin. Yeah, some people don't learn from the plagues that befall humanity. But you were going to say something?
Yes. It's like this new book I just began reading, Gothic Grimoire. In the book, he speaks of, I just like the way he pointed out the fact that you don't have to, like, for example, you don't have to join like a coven. You can, in fact, be the one to start it. So I kind of like that attitude.
Well, I've made a point with my Temple of Blood material and some other stuff. It's not about the now I do think one of the orders that I've done a couple rituals for wouldn't let me be a member. It may be more than that, I don't know, but one of them that I have connected to their current per se. At first the guy wanted to be helpful, but then I guess not. But but the thing is, it's not about the organizational thing. You get yourself involved in different currents and stuff like that and switch, or you keep repeating your own version of something. Now I got a picture of it up on the board. I got it in my hand. It's not appearing on the screen, but you see that I painted another piece of wood, and it's a sharp piece of wood, so that fits in with the whole vampire myth thing. And the white bit for me glows in the dark.
Oh, neat.
And
the white
you got
around
the seal of the Moraine or the Morena, and the others more generally the Drakon Covenant. So the leader symbol and the more general organization thing. And by getting into this, I'm not saying anything particular about, approval of anything particularly that Ryan Fleming did or didn't do and that sort of thing. People need to just stop that when they comment on things. Oh, you have a book on your table. This thing about this guy. Yeah. That would happen. Like this other guy, he was doing aura research, and it's like, no, you don't make your you don't if if you don't want to fall into certain things, you don't want to be alone unsupervised with all with every attractive young member of the opposite sex that shows up in your office, and them unclothed and everything else. Something was bound to happen. So, and I mean really, or you don't have to the evidence towards the idea that you have to take off your clothes or something like this to test the auras is not really too strongly there. There would be a minor effect, but I mean, the heat, light, moisture, and magnetism, it would stop some flow, but in general, you're not going to really find any more information by making that more explicit. But working with your own energy should generally be the importance. Two selections from Surah 16 here. So 66 to 76. And surely in cattle, there's a lesson for you. We gave you a drink from the extract of food in their bellies and blood, purest milk, so delicious to drink, and in fruits of the date palm and the vine, from which you obtain inebriating drinks and excellent food. In this are signs for those who understand. Your Lord has predisposed the bees to make their hives in mountains and trees and trellises, and suck from all fruits and flit about the unrestricted paths of their Lord. A drink of various hues comes out from their bellies, which contains medicine for men. If this is a sign for people who reflect, it is God who creates you and that makes you die, and some reach the age of dotage when they forget what they had known before. God is indeed all-knowing, all-powerful. Some of the vampire myths, the person vampirized on doesn't remember. God has favored some of you over others in the means of substance. Those who have been favored with more do not give of their means to the dependents, so they become equal with them. Do they then deny God's beneficence? God has provided mates for you of your own kind and has bestowed upon you sons and daughters from your mates and has given you the good things for food. Will they then even believe in the false and deny God's grace? Yet they worship those apart from God who cannot provide for them any sustenance from the earth or the heaven, nor will they have power to do so. Well, we find that the substance is there, and a key thing that is standard to most of what people call vampirism is that something else is worshipped. So not similitudes for God, and be God knows, and you do not know. God presents the example of a man who has a hired servant with no power over anything, and another who we have bestowed a handsome fortune, who spends from it in private and in public. Can they be equal? Praise be to God. Most men do not understand. God presents another example of two men. One is dumb, unable to do a thing, and is a burden on his master. Wherever he is sent, he returns without any good. Could he be equal to the one who enjoins what is just and follows the right path? So in that passage, we find something along the lines of the servant master thing. So the directing of people, the extracting of things, distinguishing between the good and what's beneficial for you and what's not beneficial for you. Like certainly if you're going to vampirize off people, it's not going to be in any way, shape, or form the sort of person they are or the sort of thing that you're vampirizing. That would definitely it would change what it's going to do to you. And notice the thing, just like that other verse I shared elsewhere, the other ones that deal with that subject, it's not, yes, there can be overall damage and stuff from drugs, but admitting that they're connected to food and healing and stuff like this, rather than just saying they're all bad and all that stuff. One of the greatest things that leads people towards what they probably shouldn't be upon is when they're told that that thing is all bad and they find out that that's not true. Now, I'm not excusing teenagers, because teenagers are fully responsible for their choices according to their abilities, but particularly teenagers, they realize things aren't as bad as they were told, and they could even end up worse than what they were told because of such things.
Right, I agree.
And 114, 116. Again, I think I might have included all the feeding related verses here. Eat of the good and lawful things that God has given you, and be grateful for the bounty of God if you really worship him. He has forbidden the carrion and the blood and the flesh of the swine and that which has been killed in the name of other than God. But if one is driven by necessity without craving or reverting to it, then God is forgiving and kind. Do not utter lies that your tongues make up. This is lawful and this is forbidden, in order to impute lies to God. For they who impute lies to God will not find fulfillment. And, well, there can be a hunger or a thirst that kind of extends itself once one goes down a certain path.
It kind of reminds me of like the moon card. Like here's the little, if you wanted to call it the blood pool, instead of the water here. And here's the little causal beings that are feeding or drinking from it.
I was going to use there was somebody that was going to bestow me with images with her in it or something like this for that card, and hasn't got back to me on that. Of course, they're kind of, I don't know, afraid or something in regards to a certain group that doesn't quite admit they're vampires, but they're like, the red of the flag is for period blood, and the person's basically a psychic vampire, that, but
no, always, never have fear. A lot of times, and I've always thought, like, the more a person fears, well, this is for me, like if I were to fear something, it could get to me, so to say. It can get to me more. But since, I don't let things, especially people, fear, I don't fear that. I don't fear people. Then, hey, no fear is good.
Or just
Not
realize that the people are the means. Like one
fear.
of the things that you get that one of the some of these verses are getting a person towards is that I mean they're along the lines of, hey, your body's like the vessel of the whole thing. It's not the physical side in it itself. So
Right.
when things are the means, just like if I'm doing this tarot card series, and I think it was one of the cards last night, and the person's like impaled, and it's the nightmare card, but the thing is, that's a moment for self-sacrifice, a moment to make that decisions of what you're going to make with your response, regardless. They put you on the stake, and they're like, oh, just admit, just confess to our faith, and we'll strangle you rather than burn you to death. And it's like, you're
Still
burning
gonna
me
die.
anyways. I might as well go out
Right. Go out with my dignity.
with my outer honor. You certainly don't blame somebody for having to do that, but
Right. Right.
1977 to 83. Have you seen him who denies our revelations and says, I will certainly be given wealth and children? He has peeped into the unknown, or obtained a promise from the most merciful. Never so, we will certainly write down what he says and prolong the extent of his punishment. All that he claims will revert to us, and he will come before us all alone, and they have taken others as gods apart from God, that they may be a strength to them. Never they will deny their devotions and become their adversities. Do you see that we have set the devils upon the disbelievers to rouse them and instigate them? I'm reminded of a lot of the vampire stories. There's the box, and you're put in stasis because you haven't fed and all that stuff. So instead of being upon what you can have here or whatever, you ignore consequences and you end up trapped or something, and you end up in sort of a stasis. But still, everything you are, that's that's going to be right there known. And before I continue, I guess I should share one thing that I had found. There's a list here. Where is it? Okay. The Philippine entities. We're going to see reference to Persephone. It might have been better to mention it there. Okay, I'm not seeing it. If I scroll back in our chat, I'll basically have what I said there. So basically, Persephone is the day and the night, and they talk about the winds. I'm not sure. Okay, Habagat and Amahan, and is Amahan the darker half of the year and Habagat the lighter half of the year? I didn't really get that Tagalog reference.
Speaking of mythology, I wanted to share, well, I call it the Night of the Wolf. And it's got a little note here. Autumn is the gateway into the dark season. It is said that the veil is thinning and sensitivities to the unseen world become a bit clearer as the dead become unbound and the living celebrate. So winter is coming. On the first night of winter, the night of the wolf, the witches, vampires, werewolves, ghosts, and all beings of the unseen meet in hidden places. If not the same exact location, that matters none, for the power of their spirit minds makes them all gathered together. No distance can stop their magic. Their meeting consists of such celebrating at this time because the understanding of the language of animals,
So you wrote
finding,
this?
yeah, uh, finding hidden treasures not just material as certain, but newfound knowledge is also truly a gem. Also, they see they see how to recognize the evil nesting in the hearts that they are to encounter in the future, for which such is wise to avoid. And then I wrote another little piece. It's called Immortality of the Soul. Okay, the dead continues their existence in the afterlife. We, the living, it is up to us to ensure their departure into this is a smooth sail into the afterlife. That reminds me of,
Most people call the wolf moon what like in January, and
yeah,
to Northwestern Europe, every ancient culture in Europe seems to have winter as the darkest time of the year. But for some reason, modernly, we decide that it starts in December rather than a week into November.
mhm.
And they already sort of messed with that by making Halloween the week before Samhain, because by
Right.
every monument, every pre-Christian monument, every pre-Christian thing, whatever their word for Samhain or Samhain, as people typically mispronounce it. It was always, actually, it was pronounced Samhain at some point because it was related to gathering whatever. But because it wasn't originally in Gaelic, but for some reason we switched it. We have fall start with the equinox, spring start with the next equinox, summer start with the solstice. For some reason we switched it over. But the Christian holidays kind of move things a little bit, and I like to keep in with the ancestral style of seeing things in terms of the lightest and the brightest and the warming and the cooling. And now I guess I'll hold off on a certain point until after this quick reading of a couple verses. 22, 36, and 37 does sort of mostly reference festivities, because well, the chapter alone should indicate that for you. But we have made them camels, signs of God for you. So there is good for you in this. So pronounce the name of God over them as they stand with their forefeet in a line. When they have fallen on their sides, eat and feed those who are content with little and those who supplicate. That is what we brought them under your subjugation, so that you may be grateful. It is not their meat or blood that reaches God, it's the fealty of your heart that reaches him. That is why he has subjugated them to you, so that you may glorify God for having shown the way. So give tidings to those that are doers of good. There are entities that are bloodthirsty and all that. Remember the Abraham story? In the Quran, the Abraham story is different. God isn't the one who gives him the dream, and God stops him and says, has something stop him and say, hey, you're already done enough, you're a doer of good. But in this case, the slaughtering the animal and sacrificing it is the doer of good. So sometimes you do something, you don't do something. And it becomes along the severity route. But it's beyond such things as the actual blood and the flesh involved. And honestly, when it's purely about the blood and flesh, then we're running into a problem where if there's any issue in society, that's when you get caught. That's when you get caught. So you don't want to go down the route where you're obsessed with the form to the point where, unless the forms you just get up and down in place or something. But it's a dedication. It's a dedication. It's not just,
I got you.
And 41, 19 to 25 The day the enemies of God will be gathered at the fire, and the records of their deeds will be distributed. There's a lot of talk about the conflagration and a lot of Order of Nine Angles associated groups. Drakon Covenant is definitely of that sort. I guess I'll point out something on the website amidst this program, so that when they reach it, their ears and eyes and persons will testify to what they did. Your bodies are a vessel, and it's definitely going to and they will say to their bodies, "Why did you testify against us?" They will answer, "God who gave us all things, the power of articulation made us to speak. It is he who created you the first time and said, and to him you will return. You did not hide so that your ears or eyes or persons should not testify against you. In fact, you thought that God did not know the things that you used to do. It is the notion you had of your Lord that caused your ruin, and you were lost. Even if they are patient, their abode is hell, and if they will beg for favor, none will favor them. We had assigned to them close companions, and made their past and their present look attractive to them, and the fate they had once befallen, the communities of jinn and men before. The jinn are the fire beings, so the causal beings, the dark gods, as Order of Nine Angle groups would call them, was justified upon them, and indeed they are bound to perish. Now, not every being like that is wanting to be upon that, but if it's obvious that we're talking about some sort of when we talk about a deity, we're not talking about something that dies. We're not talking about something that's limited by the gender or the bodies, because not even we are the genders or the bodies that we operate. Right. And a chapter that can refer to the bloodsucker thing, because the leech is that, and it's interesting how these things don't mention, they don't mention particular people, because I mean, you know what I mean? They don't mention contemporary people for the most part, except a title, the Abu Lahab, because there's more lessons to be learned from that. And of course, back when I had a popular Facebook, there was something along the lines of, okay, I'm just checking. We got 7 minutes left. There was something along the lines of I made all these posts about hell and demons and all that sort of stuff, and I use scripture and stuff like this, and people like, yeah, we don't want to go to hell and all that other stuff, and but anyways, so in the name of God, most beneficent, the merciful, read in the name of your Lord who created man from an embryo. Read, for your Lord is most beneficent, who taught by the pen, taught men what he didn't know, but yet man is rebellious, for he thinks he is sufficient in himself. Surely your returning is to your Lord. Have you seen him who restrains a votary when he turns to his devotions? Have you thought, if he had been on guidance or he enjoyed piety, it would have been better? Have you thought that if he denies and turns away, does he not know that God sees? And yet, indeed, if he does not desist, we will drag him by the forelock, by the lying, sinful forelock. So let him call his associates. We shall call the guards of hell. Beware, do not obey him, but bow in adoration. And draw near to your Lord. Did I lose you there? Okay, no, you're still there. So at the very least, one of the issues that can draw up, now there's the idea that there's 19 guards of hell, but this person that's was addressed first with this, he saw the opening up of the vault and saw this being this guard come forth, and from that moment he wanted to be of a different path than what he was upon, but he kind of held back a bit. But he knew from that point on that eventually, if he lived to it, he was going to be of that. And so I think I should go over the vampirism chant again, and then we'll let you, unless you have a quick comment here.
No, it's after you do the chant, though, I'd like to make a little comment. The vampirism book I got,
well, I guess we can't share too much of it if it's not over a certain age, but okay.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Hal, Lal, Eli, Allah, Gumkazum, Sirhi, Izum, Husbandum, Vug, Lazu, Gvolps, Civil, Uzira, Zichlil, Azalxfi, Numbenzet, Volzum, Agab, Lichel, Ovbum, Mubz, Zah, Muz, Havi, Vungav, Gus, Vambahbaz, Vabi, Zov, Obvam. Now remember that there's the color coding in the meme of what we've gone over here. And another way of saying Aura, Lil, Al, Roar, Maz, Hal, Lal, Ele, Allah, Gumkazum, Serhe, Evzum, Pazbandum, Vug, Lazu, Gvalps, Civil, Azir, Zeh, Lil, Izalksve, Numbenazet, Valzum, Egab, Lechel, Avbum, Mabz, Zahmz, Vikbumgab, Gus, Vahbaz, Vabe, Zav, Abum. And of course, I'll try to work on that as the time progresses and say it better sometimes than others. But the sixfold transfer of the honey of the sun and the moon is had in orange, black, purple, violet, blue, green, red, white, and yellow. The mysteries of the heavens are claimed for my own to separate with companions, familiars who distinguish themselves with the mastery of union with demons and feeding up of the infernal and death energy to feed on our enemies. Manipulation is from the very center to the external. The rhetoric is internalized upon the borders. The leader's manipulation is by interplay. There is violence in the spoiling manipulation of the perception. A psychic attack is upon the umbral, chthonic, milk, shape-shifting, desire perceived, binding or conditional, the cerebral fluid, the blood, the connecting sexual fluid, and the emotions and psychiatry. And so that kind of summarizes a bit from all the different types of vampirism. We don't have time to re-go over the explanatory thing yet, but you said there's some comment that you want to take the last minute to say, so I'll leave that to you.
Okay. Well, it's based off of what I learned in a book, but it kind of refers to what I was talking about earlier. But I'll just go ahead and share with the exact wording. I wrote this not quite a year ago, but preparing the tough astral body. This book includes. Oh, I'm sorry. My summary here includes techniques in which one could adopt and use for building a strong astral body or astral double. The stronger this is, the better it will make for one in the afterlife, as in what happens after the physical body passes. It's why it's so important to do daily spiritual works and practices. What one does now in this physical